guys, this is Jason, Colorado Mountain Man Survival. Today I'm going to do a bow drill fire. I'm going to use just this tree for my spindle and my hearth board. We don't always have the luxury of a nice skinny tree to make a spindle out of. So this is what you have. This is what you're going to use to make a fire. Aspen at upper elevations, higher elevations, seems to be a little bit more dense than the aspen I found at lower elevation. So it can be a little bit more difficult. Out here we have aspen and pine is pretty difficult for a bow drill and a spindle. So we're going to use this guy. So aspen I found is more dense the higher up the tree you go. So I'm going to use the less dense wood near the bottom of the tree, and that's either going to be firewood up there or just waste. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut out a section probably about 18 inches here at the bottom, and I'm going to use that wood. I'm learned to be a little bit more selective on the wood that I use from aspen. If it's a white wood, it seems to be a little bit more soft. If it gets almost like a caramel color, it tends to be more dense, and aspen up here is very notorious for glossing over and becoming really smooth if the wood is too dense. So the softer the wood, the better. But I'm going to go ahead and take this tree down. If it is a larger tree or a tree that's not been as dead as long, I would probably need a saw or a hatchet or my knife to cut it down. But the root system on aspens is usually pretty weak, so I'm going to try to knock this guy over. Pretty simple. Be aware of aspen trees like that if you're out here making shelters. That, not a lot of weight here, but if that came down on you in the middle of the night and you're sleeping and hits you in the head, you're not going to be a happy camper. You'll always lose against a tree. But anyways, this is going to be my hearth board and my spindle. Alright, so I cut off my first section. It's probably about 18 inches long. I'm going to try to get my hearth board and my spindle out of this one piece. I'm out here at my camp, one of the shelters that students built. Got a rainstorm coming in, so I'm going to try to get this done pretty quick. But I'll show you this piece of wood. Right here in the center, that's the heartwood. That's the most dense piece of this wood. I don't want this. It doesn't break down as much. So what I want to try to do is get a spindle out of there and probably a hearth board somewhere out of here, maybe from here to here. I'm going to baton this guy in half, and so I use this part as my hearth board and this is my spindle. So I'm going to split this wood in half, split it again here. This is just a cross section, and then I'm going to split it like this, and then I'm going to whittle out the pieces I want out of this section. The rest of the tree I'm going to baton it down, and basically a one log fire. We'll do a log cabin fire out of that. And the next thing I need to do is go gather some tinder, probably some grass. It rained pretty hard yesterday, so I might have a little difficult time finding some dry grass. Otherwise, I can use the bark from aspen trees if I can find the properly decayed stuff. It becomes sort of hairy, sort of like cottonwood bark. But I'm going to go ahead and get working on making these sections out of this piece of wood, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, that's going to be my spindle, or at least I'm going to try. This worries me a little bit, but I'm going to work on that. This stuff I can use for firewood here, and then this is going to be my hearth board. All right, so here's my hearth board, and this is what I'm going to try to whittle my spindle at. That curve may or may not be an issue, but I'm going to work on these guys, and then we'll go get the rest of the material. All right, my cameraman went to go harvest some grass for me with this storm rolling in. So I'm gonna start whittling the spindle out of this. I'm not sure if I really like that one too much. So hearth board's already done. We can use that guy. Just trying to find a good piece that I can use. Maybe that I'll have to do that. Yeah. Without going and harvesting another bunch of wood, I think this is going to be our best piece. So I'm going to work on this guy, try to get as round as possible. It's more important, you want this guy to be as straight as possible. You can see that little jog in there, but I can whittle that out. Ideally, you want it, I always say the size of my thumb, but you know, some people have pretty big thumbs, some people have little thumbs. So roughly around the size of a nickel. You can do it with a much larger spindle, but if it's too big, it's going to take a huge amount of strength and endurance. It's going to sap your energy. You may not be able to get it. Too small of a spindle, if it's, you know, size of your pinky, I might burn through this hearth board too fast, and you won't be able to get a large enough coal. But anyways, try to get this guy down to a workable size, nickel size. Sorry if I'm hitting you in the face with some shavings, but we're just going to continue whittling this until it's nice and round. That way it'll spin really well on that hearth board once I'm ready to bust out a coal. You can see I'm constantly spinning this as I'm whittling it. That way it gets a round shape. Usually what I'll do is I'll get one end done so it's nice and round. You can see it's already starting to get round-ish. That's too big. It needs to be smaller, but I'll just keep working at that until it's the size I want. You can speed this up by batoning at it. Make sure your hands are out of the way. Nobody likes to lose a finger. Don't do this over your leg. Bleed out pretty fast if you cut a major artery in your leg. I'm not sure if I like the color on that, but we might give it a shot. If it doesn't work, then I'll go get another section from that wood. But you can see I'm kind of carving out that curve. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want this straight as possible and the right size so we don't get too tired too fast. Now, little tip, I suppose, sometimes get asked, do I build a fire first or do I build a shelter first? That depends on the situation. With a storm coming in, I'd probably build my shelter first, and then gather my fire making material, and then put dry wood, whatever, inside my shelter. That way, if it does start raining, it's not going to get everything wet. And then, once I get my shelter built to keep me dry if the rain comes in, then I can work on my fire. Kind of crooked, but we're going to try and make it work. Doesn't work, I'll whittle another one. It won't make you suffer through it watching me. But you can see I'm getting this whittle down pretty quickly. This was a big tree 10 minutes ago. I'm going to use that tree to make fire. Don't like how much it jogs off on the top, so I'm just going to take that top piece off. One side's going to be pointy, the other side is going to be blunt, kind of like a pencil. You know, you got your pencil lead on one side and your eraser on the other. We're going to be erasing when we make this fire and not necessarily writing. So there's my point. It's going to go up like this. I don't know where I put my bearing block, but my knife has a hole in it. I can use that as a bearing block, but it's going to go up like this. So now I just need to whittle that down into kind of a dome shape. I'm going to use my smaller knife for that. It's not perfect and it's not pretty, but I'm trying to beat the storm, get a fire going. Still continue to spin this as well. I'm wielding the spindle. See, I got a flat edge there. I don't want that flat at all right there. That needs to be pointy, or not pointy, but rounded out. Alright, it's a little more rounded. That'll work itself out as I start bowing. You can kind of see this is oval shape, so I'm going to work a little bit more to take down the sides a little bit. Where we're going to fine tune this and make this a little prettier, a little more round. All right. I need to find my bow and my bearing block. Over there. Okay, here's my bow. Here's my bearing block. Pop it in there. It's pretty tight. That's what I want. I want that nice and tight. So once I start bowing, it's gonna sit like this. I don't necessarily need this that pointy, but we're gonna go with it. Now, here's my hearth board. Sits on the hearth board, and that's what we're gonna do. What I'm missing now is an ember pan. Once I cut in a V-notch on here, that ember pan is going to catch the coal that goes in here. But before I make that V-notch, I'm going to burn this in. I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken my knife and just wallowed out a little notch right there. That's for my spindle to sit in. So it'll spin in there and it won't walk up and down this guy. So that's going to sit in there just like that. You can see I have it probably about half to a quarter inch off the edge of this so that I won't burn out the side. Now I'm going to burn this in before I cut out that notch. Always put your knife back in the sheath so you don't hurt yourself. Alrighty. See how we do here with this quick bow. Okay, I burned that in there. Now I'm going to cut my notch. It's not too shiny, it's a little shiny, so the selection of wood isn't optimal, but I'm going to see if that'll work. All right, so I've cut my notch in there. This is when this guy spins in here, all the dust is going to fall out of here. For those of you that have never done a bow drill before, that's where the magic happens. Anyways, we're going to try to get this once my cameraman, my son, gets back with the grass I had him go collect. We're going to work on this. We'll try to get a fire going. Now, in all honesty, having the skill to do a bow drill friction fire is pretty cool. You should have it in your toolkit. You should know how to do it. But if you ever are in a situation where you actually have to start a fire using a bow drill, quite frankly, you screwed up somewhere along the way. You should be prepared when you go out in the woods. You have your lighter. Lighters don't always work. You have your ferro rod. You have multiple sources to start a fire. But should something happen, you should have this skill available in your toolbox. All right, starting to sprinkle a little bit, unfortunately. Let me see, what can I use from Ember Pan? I don't like using leaves out here. They're too thin, so I usually have to find something a little bit beefier. I don't like using a big chunk of wood like this because it rattles on the board, so I try to find something thin. Maybe I'll just try to take some of this off. Nah, that's not gonna work. I might be able to use this shaving. It might be too small. Let's give it a shot and see what we can do. I'll put that underneath there. I'm not really prepared. I should have my one log fire laid out, but I just want to show you how to get a coal, I suppose, out of this guy. Alrighty, here we go. Wish me luck. All right, not enough dust yet. Yeah, that's fine. Cameraman's back, but I'm gonna take a little bit of break and then get going again. we get one? We did, but I knocked it off my little tiny ember pan. You can see the smoke still right here. I got to figure out either do this again or try to get this coal up on top of that pile without breaking it apart. Don't think I'm gonna have luck getting it back up here. Oop. We'll give it a shot. That's tiring at 9,500 feet. Let's see them. You can see, got it going. I don't think that's enough to get a fire going. I'm going to let it sit up in there and kind of solidify. All that on there, that's wasted energy. Just hoping that this will have enough to get the rest of that dust pile going. While that sits there, here's my Tinder Bundle. Feels pretty dry. We're going to work this down, spend time crushing this up and getting it to small pieces, hair-like. You want it really fine. Normally I would collect a lot more. I'd have my log cabin fire lay set up, and then I would catch this on fire and I'd put it in my fire lay that has more of this. But for demonstration purposes today, I'm just going to try and get this guy going, make a nice bird's nest. Not too confident in this. It is growing, but I'm concerned it's going to break apart on me once I transfer it into here. But we might get lucky. Wind is kicking up. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Protect it if you need to. Give it a little bit more air if you need to. But let's try it and transfer this. As you can see, I'm in no hurry here. I got a fair amount of dust. I just didn't get a really hot ember. But I need this to set up, especially when I had this tiny ember pan, or that tiny ember that came off of there. But the longer I wait, the more it's going to create a larger ember. All right, I'm gonna hand this over to the other guy right there, wave, and he's gonna videotape me trying to blow this into a flame. All right, so I'm gonna pick this guy up with one hand, and I'm gonna dump this in here with the other gently. Come on. All right. Move under the shelter with me. So I got rain coming in, so I might as well stay dry. You can see it's smoking. I want this to get bigger. I don't want to blow on this too hard. I've completely encapsulated that. Can you see that? Can you see that? Now, if I don't want to blow too hard, I might do this. Hopefully I didn't put it out. And we got fire from slightly wet grass and a little tiny ember. So this would be dumped into my fire lay, whatever that may be. Stay right there, stay right there. So have this all ready so you're not scrambling like I just did here, but you should have plenty of tinder here. Plenty of fire making material. So that's it. That's how you make a bow drill set, or should I say a spindle and a hearth board out of a tree. You can get the other sources, your bearing block, your ember pan you saw. I just took a tiny wood chip, and your bow you can harvest from an area in here. And if I had time, or wasn't shooting this video, I would have had everything else all prepped and ready to go. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again next time.